Okay, guys, after the recent, and I mean recent drop of this deep dive, I had to talk about it. I had to actually sit down. I watched this like twice, and I want to go over what we found out. I want to go over what all it said. I want to break this down because I went into this thinking that it probably won't be the biggest thing in the world, but I had hope that it would do something to breathe new life into the game. And legitimately, that's what I'm seeing happen. So I'm gonna actually play it through and talk about the small points that I pulled out of it. And if you have any other like ideas or things that you saw going on in the video that you would like to talk about, yo, leave it in the comments, right? And we'll talk about them. But let's go ahead and start this because I think this is a big thing for this game. I legitimately do. I mean, just from the conception of it, like what they were trying to do, what they were trying to achieve, like all of that seems so great. They have a big thing laid out, right? Like they're actually continuing the story straight off from where it left off by adding more characters' involvement in the story as if it's a series, like as if it's a comic lineup. It's tripping me out, dude. It's tripping me out.
First new hero of season 1, Kate Bishop. Since launch in
And
September,
I mean, here
millions
they
of
just
you have
go
started
into.
on
If
this
you haven't
journey
seen the
with
video,
us.
I recommend actually going to see the video
Kamala surprised
yourself
many
because
of
I'm
you
going
with
to
her
talk over it a
disarming
lot. I'm going to
severity,
talk over it
going from
most
fangirl
of the
to
time.
Avenger.
But basically, what
She's
it
not
lays
just
out
one of
is
the
this is
assemblies,
the main
but
story
is
that
the
you've already
foundation of
played
all
through.
our content
This is the
development.
foundation for what's
Teams are
going to
building a
happen.
story with
They
new heroes
basically
and
lay out that
superheroes,
this is
and no
exactly the
additional
way we had
costs.
wanted it set up, and
Season
this is
1
what
kicks
we
off with
told you
Kate Bishop,
guys was
Operation
going to
Taking
happen.
Aim.
So I'm going to stop it right there. The way that this is pulled out actually makes a lot of sense. The way that they do this framing is intentional because they actually say later on in the video, we will get to that, but later on in the video, they say that each one of these characters that are going to be added are like adding another comic strip to an overarching storyline. And that legitimately it blew my mind. Why? Because it sounds so simple, but to actually implement that in a game is slightly difficult. Now this company has had a bad track record with this game. All that be said, that's the truth. But what they're doing now is a huge step in the right direction. I'm not saying that they are just without fault anymore because there's still things that they need to fix. But come on, let's just keep watching this and see what happens. And I gotta give them kudos for the aesthetic of this. This just looks cool with the whole Kate Bishop taking aim, actually looking like a comic book cover. Then the way they have the panel set up, brilliant. Not gonna lie,
It will be
brilliant,
available December 8th.
freaking
Because
brilliant.
Operation is
Also, before we continue, let me point that out. I know a lot of people were hoping that the release would be this month. I was too, and I thought that if they pushed it back, it would be a huge misstep. But they are saying that it will come out December 8th, like she will drop December 8th. So, with that being said, that's not terribly too far away. So, I'm okay with that, right? I'm not sitting here like, oh my God, they pushed it back. It's done. It's out of here. Let's get it gone. No, December 8th isn't too terribly far away. So it's not that big of a hit to me in my personal opinion. I know some people might think that that's bad, but I mean, honestly, we've waited this long. We can wait a few more weeks, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Also, take a look at this. This is what I was talking about earlier when I was talking about the comic book covers. It looks like a comic book variant because it says Marvel Avengers has her viewed up on the front page like a variant for the same comic line. However, later on, the same title that they showed with Kate Bishop taking aim in the little subtitle, little subtext there is actually more along the lines of the comic continuation of the story arc. It's just I'm sorry, I'm super excited. None of this has been scripted at all, and I'm not cutting and chopping it. This might be a long video, at least twice the length of the original deep dive,
It's
if
the
you
first
will.
new chapter in season 1 of the Avengers Initiative. After coming back together and standing up to
Also, that's another thing to point out. They said it's the first new chapter in season one of the Avengers Initiative. We had been playing season zero essentially, which basically meant there was nothing actually going on. It was the very, very foundation of it. It was the ground. It was the dirt. You understand? And now we're actually starting to build the castle on top of the foundation or the house or the mansion, whatever you want to freaking call it. We're building now upon that, which is awesome to me. It really
team,
is.
the first battle was won, but the war is
Man,
far from over.
this part I'm gonna stop in a
Avengers
second because
Fallen
this is
remains,
important in
and
my
the
opinion.
story continues with Kate Bishop in Operation Taking Aim.
Okay, so check that out. They flat out said that the storyline is going to continue with this additional DLC, which is free, mind you. So anybody, and it says that in this video. Again, if you haven't seen it, go watch the original War Table deep dive. I'm going to be breaking down a lot of stuff and just talking over it a lot, so you're not going to get the full gist of it based on what they said. You're just going to get my like overstated opinion, I guess you could say. But each character now going forward is going to add to the actual main storyline. So the original campaign is not necessarily done. So with that being said, all the original complaints of the campaign being short is kind of gone. So if you were someone that was waiting to purchase the game and you still want to wait, I would wait till December 8th. That way you can get the original campaign with the extension of the campaign for free. And there's going to be more extensions as characters continue to come out. And they already stated that Clint, the actual Hawkeye, the original Hawkeye, will be coming out early 2020. So we're gonna get more into that. Now there's a section of this I will skip over because it just goes into more detail about her storyline. And again, I want you guys to watch the actual war table to get all that information for yourself. I'm not going to go too deep into that portion of it. There's just small sections I want to take out and actually go over with you. I am so sorry about the speed in which I'm talking. I'm just actually very excited. There's something at the end of this video that it made me lose my mind. The very end of this deep dive video just freaking made me lose it.
Better come back, all right?
I'll try. But if I don't...
Nope, not having that conversation.
Now, I know this game has nothing to do with the MCU, right? Had nothing to do with it. And it has more to do with the comics. But I want to point this out because I thought this was actually pretty freaking cool. If you guys have seen, and I'm sure you all have seen Endgame, the scene where Hawkeye's actually talking to Black Widow and they're discussing who's actually going to sacrifice themselves for the Soul Stone. That little bit right there reminded me of that, but a little bit more lighthearted because someone wasn't being sacrificed. And she was pushing off the idea that Hawkeye himself could in fact die, which is something I want to touch on here in a second when they actually go into more detail about this particular story with the little clips. Mind you, all trailers are edited a certain way so you don't get the full idea, you just get kind of the general gist. And I'm sure they did some clever editing in this to throw us off a little bit so we wouldn't know the full story. But let's continue.
You know we thought you were dead. Nobody heard from you. It's a bridge through time. Nobody's been foolish enough to actually try it.
I'm not giving up on my friend.
Katie, we're talking...
Okay, so for one, the Avengers thought she was dead. She says she's not going to give up on her friend, and there is something in which she has to go through time to fix. In my opinion, I'm thinking that Hawkeye in our current timeline is dead. Like he's dead or something devastating happened to him and she has to go backwards in time to fix it, to actually get him. And there's more to help that implication, that thought process in this trailer. But again, all good gaming and movie trailers do clever editing to kind of throw you off. Bad ones, though, edited to the point where it's not at all in any way, shape, or form resembling the actual final product, which is terrible. And we've all been down that road. Let's hope we're not going down that road again. Let's try to stay positive on this one. Please.
Think about time collapsing in on itself, eventually tear reality apart.
Ooh, okay. I have so many questions. But I like the energy, so let's just turn this thing on before I overthink.
See, like that scene right there, I don't think that was actually in response to what he was just saying. At all. I think that was in response to a completely different conversation that she was having with someone, and she, like, rebutted it that way. But again, just clever editing with the trailer.
Did you not just hear me say tearing reality apart?
We're gonna go get Clint out of the wrong timeline, cut Monica off from her future self.
Simple. I like it. That's still messing with time. That might work.
Also, I think that if we do end up getting Ant-Man, because I know there was data mine characters released on who's going to be launched and whatnot and what have you, but concretely, I think if we do end up getting Ant-Man back into the game as a playable character, it's probably going to have something to do with this time rift stuff where he's able to fix the issue that he has with himself. In addition to that, so they weren't wrong when they said the Tachyon rifts were going to lead into her storyline and whatnot. They did tell us that, and they were being 100% honest. But at the same time, just releasing Tachyon rifts and nothing else was a little bit tacky. But God, I'm stupid. But with that being said, we're actually getting more in-depth information about what's going on in the story with this launch.
Wonders.
Great, let's go get Hawkeye.
So there's one thing I wanted to point out. A lot of people were hoping that Hawkeye would be more akin to Ronin with his katana that was seen in the trailer. And let me pause it right here because he said something right there I want to talk about. But as we see, Kate Bishop actually uses her katana, or a katana, in fact, that might have actually been his, which that's speculation. That's pure fan theory at this point. either way, we see that she uses it. So Hawkeye's playstyle is going to have to be egregiously different to make the people want to play, two different characters and not make it seem like a wasted character slot. You understand what I'm saying? So he's going to have to be quite a bit different than her. And with some of her skill sets, the way that they show, the way that it's set up, I believe that he will be. Again, I'm not going to go super in depth with her skills. I will tell you what I think about them, how they could be used, what that kind of puts her at. But for now, we only have very little information about what she can do. They do a good idea of kind of giving you the gist of it, but we don't have like super solid information of how that'll work with, say, for example, Pym particles or frost or what have you, or cosmic energy. They do introduce a different type of energy via her attacks though. But I wanted to point out that they're gonna have to show them in some kind of light to be completely different in playstyle. Now, why I stopped it is because Hawkeye says right there, "You don't understand. I agreed to this." So, what I'm thinking throughout her story, again, trailers are edited a certain way, guys. But what I'm thinking is throughout her storyline, Hawkeye is either infiltrating AIM or she thinks he is teamed up to work with AIM, and she doesn't believe it. And when she confronts him about it, he's like, "No, it's not what you think. This is something I wanted to do." Now that's my speculation. That conversation might have nothing to do with AIM at all. But we do know that this is going to be completely AIM heavily focused. And let's be real here. For a little while, it's gonna be that way until we get that story resolved, and then we can go into the next chapter of the actual comic arc, so to speak. And again, remember, this is season 1. So with season 1 coming to a close, we don't know what season 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so on and so forth is going to bring. And if they are actually doing some of the characters like Black Panther, for example, we'll just use him as a prime example, his story arc would probably have little to nothing to do with AIM. And they do say in the trailer, this trailer, which I'll touch on later when it gets to that there will be new biomes, which basically means new levels. That's essentially what that means. So there's going to be that as well. Now, if there's going to be different game types, how Tachyon Rift is technically a different game type, they don't really say that, so to speak. But let's continue. And I'm sorry about the audio for the trailer being lower, because I want you guys to actually go and watch the actual trailer if you have not. This is me speaking about the trailer. I'm not trying to show you the trailer itself. I want you to watch. It's like 9 minutes and some seconds long. But anyway. Now, we saw her use her blink, and they actually go into that. But before I say that, this is the super adaptoid that everybody was like, holy crap, when the data mine stuff was linked. And I do want to stop right there. Let's go back a little bit. We fought at the very end of the main campaign. We fought one of these bad boys, so to speak. But now it's back. The question is it the same one that was defeated by the bridge, or no? Is it a different one? Is it another one that was sleeping? What is it? Is it MODOK coming back? Who knows? We don't know yet, but there's a lot of speculation that can go into that. Now, what they do with these adaptoids, I think is pretty awesome. And I also think that it's really solid that everybody's getting their own little logo. So that was the quick blip part of the whole Operation Kate Bishop taking AIM thing. I like how they have this laid out, because every character has its own unique, personal journey as far as their missions are concerned. And the game itself gives you perks for clearing those missions, clearing said missions. You get bonuses for it, right? So with this, I'm happy to see that it's more than just, because a lot of people were worried that it was just going to be like 2 little segments, 1 mission here, 1 mission there, and that would be it. This looks like it's actually going to be an overarching story added on to the campaign, which that, again, I cannot stress this enough. That makes me so happy that they're doing it this way, where they're adding on to the campaign. They are extending the campaign. They are making it better. They are making sure that people are actually going to feel like they're getting their money's worth. So again, if you are someone who's worried about the short length of the campaign, just wait until December 8th. And when this drops, you actually get the game and you'll get a longer campaign. On top of that, on that note, it might even be on sale by that point. Not necessarily saying the game's price in and of itself will drop, but they might do a sale because Black Friday and all that stuff. So you might get it a little earlier just to have it, at a lower price.
Operations are new story experiences that can feature new playable heroes, villains, biomes, and more.
Okay, so that's what I was talking about. They said operations are new playable experiences, so that flat out is telling you that it's not going to be the same thing as their iconic missions. It's completely different. It's saying it can feature new heroes, new villains, which is awesome because that's something we've been needing. Unfortunately, right now it does look like we're only getting one new villain. And it might be one new villain per hero, but that's kind of speculation as well. I'm not 100% on that, but you'll see why I say that in a second. I'll explain that once we get to that point. And again, the new biomes is new levels, new areas, new maps.
We planned from the beginning to build an interconnected narrative that unfolds and evolves as we release new content.
And that is something that they did say. That's something that they kept true to. Again, you probably didn't hear it, but they said they plan to build from the beginning an interwoven like connection between the different content that they release, so the storyline could actually continue. That's something they did say. That's something they're finally getting around to doing.
Feature beats of new story that work together to form an arc, like a run of comics or episodes in a season of a show.
And this touches on what I said earlier, how they're doing it to make it seem like a run of comics with an overarching storyline, or in this case, as they said, seasons of a show. So I mean, that's actually really good. And essentially, what they're getting at now is that once they actually release these and they actually let them out, you get different rewards for these particular missions, right? You get better rewards for doing these specific missions, and you can get rewards that you can only get for doing these specific missions. Now, this Super Adaptoid thing is something that people have been wanting for a little while, not the actual creation itself, not the actual villain itself, but what they're saying it is. So how we have the Mega Hive now, this is essentially the multiplayer version of it. Not saying it in and of itself is a hive. I don't think it's going to be laid out that way, but this is a boss that can only be fought multiplayer, or at least that's the way they made it sound. In the multiplayer version of it, he is an Omega level threat, and if you are versed in anything with Marvel as far as the comics, Omega level is pretty up there. With that being said, there might be a single player version of it, but in all honesty, if I'm being truthful, I would prefer it to be multiplayer only, how we have the Hive multiplayer only, or the Mega Hive, I'm sorry, I misworded that. I would prefer this to be multiplayer only, how we have the Mega Hive single player only, so we could have two different types of end games for two different types of players. Now, mind you, they can interchange both of those. They could make the Mega Hive multiplayer as well, and they could make this have a single player portion to it as well. That's completely up to them. It wouldn't break the game. It's just a preference that I would have, because it gives end game for two different types of players, and I think that would actually benefit the game in and of itself.
Tales of Suspense number 84. It has a cosmic origin and is programmed.
And this is just going into what the Super Adaptoid came from. Now, I will say this: the fact that they do that actually makes me happy. I'm gonna let this keep running. I think that it's good because it shows that they're coming out with stuff directly from the comics. And what she was just talking about is what I said earlier about the multiplayer version Omega level threat. Now, because she used the word version, I'm not 100% sure if it's just going to be multiplayer period, or if it's just going to be multiplayer and then have the single player option. I guarantee you, if it has a single player option, running with AI companions will be a lot harder than playing with people, as long as the people that are playing kind of have an idea of what they're doing. Let's be real, if you've been playing this game since it launched and you're at this point, I feel like you will probably have an idea as to what you're doing. It'll be kind of rare to find people that are kind of like noobish at the game, if you will, and have no idea what they're doing. But we as a community can come together and we can coach them along. I believe in us in that part.
Best known for her roles as Tiny Tina in Borderlands 2 and 3.
Now this is something that I'm conflicted on. I like this voice actress. She's a very good voice actress, but I'm conflicted because they use it as a selling point. Like, okay, this is the voice actress from Tiny Tina in Borderlands 3, and they go on to list her other, accolades and whatnot, which is good. You should always bolster your people that are, doing the work for you. But it also feels like because they're playing from the back foot and trying to get people back in and reignite the fire for the game, they're like, hey guys, look who we got. So this one kind of is a hit and miss for me, this little announcement right here, because it's like, okay, that's super dope that you got this lady that's very good at doing what she does, and she's playing this character. I'm glad you're excited about it, but that in particular is not necessarily something that you should be like trying to push to the forefront. You should be more focused on the character releasing and the stuff that's coming along with it. There are people, even me, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool that they got this person to do this character. That's actually pretty neat. However, right after they said it, they had her say a line that was a callback to Borderlands 3 with Tiny Tina. She's like, "Oh, you like robots? Me too." And it's like, come on, like it's a little on the nose if you catch my drift. And I have a big nose, so putting it on my nose is pretty. It's easy.
Kate learned much of what she knows from Clint, so that's reflected in her kit. But she has her own heroics and finishers and intrinsics.
So here's the thing, right? I'm loving that they keep going back to the comics. I actually love that. And the reason I'm loving that is because they're trying to separate themselves as hard as possible from the MCU, which I think is good.
Bishop is a world-class archer and an adept swordswoman. With repurposed aim tech, she uses quantum energy to power a unique set of special abilities.
Okay, so now we're getting a look at quantum energy and how it works with her. Her unique way to unleash this type of energy. So this is something that is set up with her specifically without adding any type of the effects of particles and whatnot from your own gear. This is her own specific type of energy that she releases. Now, what's not shown is if that quantum energy has a lingering effect, like a damage over time, if it has a crippling effect, or anything like that. It doesn't show anything of that nature, so we don't know how it's going to stack with the different types of effects from the gear that you get. For example, it might make things, react better to it. For example, when Thor charges his hammer throw and Mjolnir hits the ground, lightning shoots from it. Every single one of those sparks of lightning hits the person with whatever effect you have on your gear. So her quantum energy might be the same way with the explosions, but it looks, as far as the explosions are concerned, it's just one big hit. With her blink, it shows that moving around the map is not going to be a task with her. I think out of all the Avengers so far, Captain America's got the short end of the stick on the map mobility, but with her, she can actually move around pretty quickly and pretty easily. Now, her parry, in my opinion, is really interesting. What her parry reminds me of, and I hate saying this, but it's the truth, what it reminds me of is Dragon Ball Z, okay? When someone would strike and you just see lines like, psoo, 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 psoo. That's what it reminds me of. But it's pretty interesting that that's what the parry is for her, to just like warp and appear behind the enemy while they're just like, "Nani?" Now this just goes into the different ways that she can actually fire her arrows. So she has her rapid succession, her multiple shot, and her explosion arrows. This is reminiscent of Black Widow's guns, how she has different types of, well, she actually has different types of guns technically, but how they fire in her intrinsic. I think it's going to work the exact same way as far as the skill tree is concerned. That's how I think that's going to go down. I'd be really surprised if she actually has her skill tree set up a different way. But it's kind of like the rockets, repulsors, and lasers for Iron Man as well. So, this decoy heroic that she has, it's a support heroic. It takes a while to launch, it looks like. She activates it and it takes a few seconds, which in a big fight could be a lot of time. It takes a few seconds for it to actually spawn. And if you notice, it fires and it does do quantum energy, but it doesn't necessarily pull aggro itself. Like, it doesn't garner aggro. They said that the arrows can distract them, but it doesn't say that it actually just straight up pulls aggro. It looks like it does, but we don't know that for sure just yet. And swapping places with the decoy is actually pretty good if you have a way to get in there and do damage really quickly. But you could also, that's something that people will need to be careful with. This will kind of separate like the high tier players of Kate Bishop with the people that are either still learning or just don't have a handle on her at all. You could end up swapping places and getting yourself killed. Like, that's a fact. Like, you can end up doing it inappropriately and just end up dead. Now, that I think is cool. So with this particular one, she fires her arrow and it shoots. It lands in a spot. She teleports to it and explodes. It sends everybody up. That has a lot of potential for outplays as far as what you're doing with the bosses and whatnot and missions. this is more of a support sort of variation of it to get people across the map. And I think it's funny that they showed Captain America doing that because, as I said earlier, he has the short end of the stick when it comes to map mobility. So here she is lending a hand. It's kind of funny. And her quantum overdrive is interesting. It gives unlimited intrinsic energy, and she can keep firing arrows just like boom, 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 and they explode. I think that's interesting, but it's like it's kind of like an it kind of reminds me of Iron Man, and I don't want them to start recycling things where every hero has something super similar. Like we already had the Black Widow comparison that I gave earlier, but I mean, it is what it is. There are going to be things that actually do happen to be similar between the different heroes. Now, see, this I thought was cool. So once you complete her story, and what they're saying is you have to complete her story. It sounds like that once you complete her story, you can jump into her end game, which is open for every character, of course. But you can jump into the end game and actually do this to get these crazy rewards. So that I'm assuming is, and we're gonna pause this because this I need to talk about. This is what made me lose my mind. What I'm assuming is that's gonna be like the Mega Hive, and that's the actual super adaptoid. Now what they're about to go into is Hawkeye Future Imperfect or what have you. What they showed here made me flip out the first time I watched it. Like I couldn't believe it. So we go into the future, a distant future, where he is, it looks like a lone stranger, because they say all hope is lost, and they show you why all hope is lost. He's walking down this passageway, everything's dilapidated, it happens so quickly, and who do we see at the end here? Like, if this is going to be the next big villain that they drop, I will lose my shit, and it will also explain why this particular skin was not a cosmetic.
Clint and the Operation Hawkeye Future Imperfect will be available early 2021. We'll have more details, including in-depth first looks at his gameplay in the very near future.
And they do say that he's dropping early 2021. I'm thinking maybe January or February, because they did say that they were going to have more details in the very near future. At his feet, he had Captain America's shield. So Cap is gone. Or at least, based on that, Captain America is dead. And he killed him. That is going to be an insane story. And when they drop that, I'm just going to lose it, man. Like, that's nuts. That's such a big jump from what we have going on now. To just, oh yeah, we're fighting AIM, yada, yada, yada. Clones, to this version of the Hulk with the dead Captain America and Hawkeye going to challenge him. I wouldn't even be able to fathom Hawkeye being able to challenge this guy. Wouldn't even be able to do it. But we got to see why he thinks he can, right? Like we need to know why he thinks he can, and is he even going to challenge him, or is he working in tandem with him? So this goes back to what I was saying earlier, where something bad happened to Hawkeye, or Hawkeye was dead. So this could be leading up to how he died, or this could be leading up to just, he decided to actually go this route. But we'll see, guys. We will see. I am so excited about the future of this game now. As long as they keep on this track, man, as long as they keep on this path that they're going, we should actually end up getting a really solid game. And that's what I'm hoping. Well, anyway, if y'all made it through this long video, I appreciate you so much. Thank you. Of course, comment, like, subscribe, hit the little button down there. It helps me. So if you want to see more content like this, I will definitely be dishing it out. I will catch you guys on the next one. Have a great day, morning, noon, or night, whatever it is, wherever you are.